All right, so now we're going to talk about if-else statements. Not just if-else, but something called if-else. I'm going to show you a wrong example first because this might be how you think, and it's not so much wrong, it's just the computer won't behave the way you think it does, and that's something that happens with programming. So, and we'll talk about the logic of it. But let's say that we want to change something around so that, okay, if your user age is greater than 16, echo you can drive. What we can then do is we can add something called else if parentheses, and you put another condition in there. For example, user age, if user age is greater than or equal to 18, you would echo you can drive and vote. \n just for what we're doing. Okay, and save it. All right. Let's run it. Nothing happens, right? Because we don't have any condition for if neither is true. So we can always put an else at the end, not an if, just an else. Else echo you are just too young. /n. It's all about the exclamation points. So essentially what's going to happen now is if the user age is greater than or equal to 16, echo you can drive. Else, if it's greater than or equal to 18, echo you can drive and vote. Otherwise, it's neither of those two things. You are just too young. So let's save that. Let's run that. You are just too young. Okay, perfect. So let's try our 16. You can drive. Yay. Let's try our 18. You can drive. That's not what we thought was going to happen. And let's talk about why that did happen. So as I said, what happens in these parentheses is it tries to render this as true or false. If it's true, it does this thing. And then it exits. Then it moves on. It basically executes what's in the curly brackets and then goes to this point. Okay? So if our user age is 18, the first condition we have is user age greater than or equal to 16? Well, if it's 18, yes, it actually is greater than or equal to 16, which is you can drive, it exits, never talks about voting. So again, it's doing exactly what we're telling it to do, but that might not be what we intended. You can think of it like a coin sorter. I don't know if anyone's ever used one of those like things where you drop a coin in and then there's like different size holes. If the first hole was the big coin, all the small coins would fit in. Instead, they go by smallest to biggest, so that only, by the time we get to the end, the big coin falls in and the small coins fall in where they're supposed to. The same thing happens here. We want to make sure that the conditions are such that we check everything that we need to. So what I'm going to change is I'm actually going to take this away. I'm going to move this one up. And I'm going to paste this one back. So now that if user age is greater than or equal to 18, it should be you can vote. You can drive and vote. And this is just you can drive. So now we have our user age. Let's set our user age to 21. Run it. You can drive and vote. If we set our user age to 17, you can drive, right? Because you can't vote. So we usually try, if we're doing something that's like a greater than, we'll very often use the highest number first and work our way down. If we're doing less than, for example, then we'll start with the lowest number and work our way up. It depends on what it is that we're trying, to do with this. There are, of course, other conditions we could be checking. So let us take a look at another one. And I'm going to turn my camera off for this one. Okay. So we could have something like username equals Alex. Okay, now we're using a string, remember? Using a string. And then we can do a check for if the username equals Alex. How do we do that? We type if, now I am going to zoom in here too, and turn my camera off. There we go. Okay. If user name equals Alex, echo, hey, that's my name too. Great. \n. Totally wrong what I just did. \n goes in the quotes, and then we do a semicolon. All right. Why are you giving me an error, man? There we go. Okay, so it's cleared. Now if I run it, hey, that's my name too. You can drive. And of course, if I were to change it, you can drive. Okay. So what did we do? We used equals equals. Why did we use equals equals? Well, as I mentioned before, anything that happens in these parentheses are going to be, it's going to be evaluated for true or false. This equals equals is the check for if something is the same. Okay. If I were to do a single equal, watch what happens. So the username was Alexis. If username equals Alex, echo, hey, that's my name too. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to run it. I'm going to clear it first. I'm going to run it. It said, hey, that's my name too. That is really poor programming on the part of PHP. In most computer languages, oh yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I thought it was going to do. Yeah, hey, that's my name too. But that's actually not the name that we have set. Why did it do that? It's because when, and it's not poor programming on PHP's part, sorry about that. It is actually common across all computer languages, which is this statement, username equals Alex, we're essentially right here setting that variable, right? So we are saying to PHP, hey, use this, like we'll set this variable. And when you set a variable, that concept renders as true. Oh, you set the variable? Awesome, it's true, do this thing. But the reality is that we really want to do is we really want to compare the values. It's not that we want to go from there. Okay, so let's save it, and now we have a comparison. Run it. Nothing happens for the name one. Let's go ahead and do an else for that one. Else. I'm sorry, that is not the name I was looking for. Okay. Period, \n, semicolon. Great. Okay. Save it. Move on. Run it. You can drive. I just wrote quote. That's not a thing. We have to write echo. Oh my gosh. What kind of day am I having? One where you found out all your videos you made for hours and hours and hours were erased or useless. PHP if.php. I'm sorry. That is not the name I was looking for. You can drive. Okay. Now, what is, yeah, so that's great. So we're doing an equals, and we're doing an else with that. So we're checking a string, and then we're getting rid of it. The only other one I wanted to give you an example of is not equal to. And so the way that we can do not equal to is we would do an exclamation mark. If username does not equal Alex, you can say either and say if the username is Alex, I'm glad to meet you. These are terrible examples, sorry. Okay, so an exclamation point equals is going to be the not. So essentially this is a not. If it is not equal to Alex, echo, my name isn't Alex either. Otherwise, echo, I'm glad to meet you. All right, so let's run that. So it's set to Alexis. My name isn't Alex either. You can drive. If I set it to Alex, I'm glad to meet you. You can drive. So in this case, when the thing is the same value, it doesn't do the first one because this is looking for, this is logic. Username is not equal to Alex. That is actually a true statement. Because it's true, we call what's in this curly bracket. If it's not true, we call what's in this curly bracket. So that is if, and that is else if, and an else all put together to give you an example of what we can do with these conditionals. So let's move on to another, a little bit more advanced conditional and go from there.